Hello, people of the sun. How are you doing? Thank you once again for coming again to Mesoamerica, your place for Mesoamerican occult knowledge, magic, and culture. Today, I want to speak to you about the second page of the Dresden Codex. But before I do, I would like to say why is it so useful. Number one, the reason why we know so very little about the Maya is because everything was destroyed, or almost everything. Thankfully, this codex and a lot of the ruins are still there for us to be able to piece some of the pieces of what was the Maya life. But what do we know about the Maya? And unfortunately, what we know about the Maya usually comes from either the History Channel or from Spanish narratives, and that is considered to be academic resources. But is that really doing justice to the Maya? This is why I have this channel. And this is why I'm doing these Dresden Codex videos. Because it is very difficult, even for the academics, to try to make sense of what was Maya life. We have a little bit of evidence, and we make our assumptions based on that evidence, but that evidence cannot piece all the pieces together. And as a result, we have to make an attempt to try to piece all the pieces together. And I don't think just by pure academic research we can do this, because there's a lot of stuff written between the words, and we can see it very clearly in the Dresden Codex. In this particular page, there's so much written between the words. Some of the translations and the iconography doesn't make a lot of sense. And so we have to put the pieces together. And the way we do that is by using the oral traditions that have been passed down to us people in Mexico to try to make sense of what is it that the Dresden Codex is really talking about. Anyway, thank you very much, and let's go. Now, like I said in the first episode, the Dresden Codex is an almanac. For those of you who do not know what an almanac is, it is basically a way to keep record of certain dates for plantation, for harvesting. It's a way for people to survive. That is the purpose of an almanac. Now, the Maya being the Maya, which are completely detached from the Western world, for the most part, as far as we know, they had a very different way of looking at time and looking at the tradition of keeping time. For us, we usually keep our time in the 365 solar year. The Maya, as we're going to see here in this particular page, they do not use that calendar strictly. They use the 260 calendar. In this page, we have 4 almanacs of 260 days, and they're divided into groups of 52, so 52 times. Now, the way in which the Maya write here is very peculiar. As you can see on the page, they have the dates kind of like written in a column up on the left, and then you have the litanies up on top, and then you have the gods kind of in the center. They seem to be communicating with all of those 3 aspects. The days on the left are Kuak, Chuen, Akbal, Men, and Manik. And even as we're going to see on page 3, they seem to order those particular days on the left as if they were trying to enumerate something, like a 1, 2, 3. Like we write the columns on the starting on the left to try to enumerate. Now, what do these days mean? Quack means storm. So usually is considered an unlucky day. Is one of those days that really don't quite fit in quite properly within the regular days. The next day, Chuen, it means a howling monkey. This is the day for spiritual guides. This is a day that is usually denoted by kind of like an invocation, kind of like to bring in like ancient ancestors. And the definitions that I'm giving you, of course, they come from archaeological research, and some of the elaborations come from my particular tradition or what I have heard from traditions, based on the Maya. My people that send, they're usually from northern central Mexico, but some of the stuff comes from a little bit from the Maya region because there was so much just just communal knowledge that is passed on, especially throughout Mexico, since now it's so connected. And so, just as a disclaimer, a lot of the stuff that I'm telling you initially is going to be just archaeological research, and then it's going to be some elaborations, which, of course, archaeologists themselves have to do to try to piece all the pieces together. All right, the third day. The third day is Akbal, which means darkness or like night. This is a particular day of negative spirits or negative feelings. And so we are going to have to, declare what are these days and then try to put them all together. The fourth day is Men, which just means eagle. It's a day for Thanksgiving. The fifth day is Manik, which means deer. Time to commemorate the passing of a good time and try to make an invocation. So it seems that we're starting from a very kind of meditative, or shall we say, developmental phase, in which we start from darkness and then we get into a more bringing forth and Thanksgiving time. Now, all of this, not only this page, but other pages are headed by 13 red. I'm not sure what that means. And a lot of archaeologists also don't give a lot of clues as to what this 13 red could mean. But the 52 days is broken into segments. One of them is 5, 12, 11, 12, and another 12 segments. If you add them up, it goes to 52. Now, but what do these segments mean and what do the days mean? It's open for interpretation. You make your guess. But I'm assuming that there are periods of something. As we go along, I'll probably explain the 5. The other one, the 11s and the 12s, are going to be a little harder to explain. But I'm going to make my guess on the 5. But before I do that, I need to explain a little bit about the gods and a little bit about the litanies. The litany on top, it says the umbilical cord of King Yun is beheaded. I don't know if I should explain this right away or should I wait for the iconography. The umbilical cord, traditionally, it is not just an umbilical cord. And it's also not a physical symbolism of a physical cord, which attaches us to our mothers. But it is more of a connection to time and space, and is also a root which connects us to also the lands of the gods. Let me explain. The Maya do not only see themselves attached to or detached from nature. They saw themselves as a reflection of plants, a reflection of animals, and so they felt that everything was somehow symbiotic and therefore somehow similar. Now, umbilical cords are very much like roots, and as a result, since they're like roots, they're attached to the darkness and they're attached to the Mictlan, kind of like the realm of the gods, where everything gets created. And so therefore, when it says that the umbilical cord was beheaded, it means that attachment to the connection to their gods, it's somehow taken out, or somehow a plant is taken out from its root. And let's continue. It says the cord is given to the wife of a Khan as food. This can also be taken in two ways. Number one is that whatever was taken from this particular king was given to this particular wife, and therefore this particular wife, now on the third litany, it says Sak Ishik is his wife, and his wife is Sak Ishik. Now the wife, this can be taken as the roots taken off, and if we see from the god iconography, this particular god is bound and is beheaded, and that is what happens to the stalks of corn. They just chop them off, lay them on the ground, and they burn them. And so grabbing basically means tying them up, slashing, beheading, and then lay them on the ground, and of course they're burned. The reason why they do this, which is the tradition that Jared White likes to call the slash and burn, is because it provides nutrients to the ground. It just provides like the nitrogen that the ground needs in order to be able to gain more nutrients and to produce a better crop, or at least produce a crop. The Maya here, of course, are speaking in symbols. They're not saying this is what you need to do, grab, slash, burn. They are speaking in very symbolic, mythological, theological ways, which was the way in which they interpret the reality. They were not very much literal like as we are. They revolve more around the aspect of gods. The four faces can make no sense, but to understand them, we need to think like the way they thought. Now let me explain the number 5. The number 5, the 11, and the 12 are likely processes. Number 5, for example, was probably the time when the ashes from the burned stock were seeping through the ground, either through rain or water or just decay. And the following segments of this particular page will give us a little bit of an indication of why is water so important. Now let me explain something. People nowadays, even scientists, think that, or a lot of scientists think that that the terrain and the environment that we have today is the environment that we have always had. This is not possible. Environment, the earth changes. Back into the time when the Maya were supreme, the water tables were higher. There was water everywhere for you to be able to move from one city to the other, particularly in Oaxaca, which I have seen. For example, to go from Mitla to, for example, Montalban, you had to either kind of like skimp on water, or you had to have like a little canoe that will take you from one city to the other one. And even driving right now, it takes it takes a while. But back then it took longer because there was just water everywhere. And so the Maya were very much into farming within water and not just straight dirt. And so if you were to slash and burn, this will be a process that will have to be not done with hydroponics, but it will have to do up above. And so therefore asking for the help of water gods like Chuck, it was essential. So let's continue on to the second page. The process here is also the same, using the dates, the days on the left, and then you have the litanies, and then you have the god iconography, and the the Maya numerals that connect them. Here is the litany. The litany says the god Ik and Chak, Chel, foretell of the lordship of the descendants of the air from the people that are now. This is way longer than what it actually says, but it's difficult to translate it. And so the perpetuity of the royal line within the Maya was very important. It was essential. Because if the royal line was able to maintain power over the people, it meant that the process in which people were being fed was not going to change. And so if a particular king was able to remain in power, then therefore people were able to prosper because they were being fed. And of course there was reproduction going on. There was not a lot of warfare, hopefully. And so the second part of this particular page is part of the almanac. Not necessarily because it's tracking time, which in a way it is, but it's also tracking the insurance that this perpetuity of people being fed is continuing. The second litany says the wife of Kimil predicts mortality. The guide of iconography shows a younger figure treading. You can see it right there. This usually predicts a work being done, not only here on Earth, but also in the lands of the gods, in Mictlan. And so this symbol seems to predict a passing of a royal member and then giving the power to its heir within the same royal line. Now, on the right, we also see a figure, a death figure, also treading. Treading basically is very symbolical. It's kind of like the movie with the girl with the red hair. What's it called? Brave. If you see Disney movies, where the treading is passed from the mother to the daughter, and it came from generations past. But the treading is not only just physical, where you're actually treading a pretty piece of cloth or uh, you know, mural or whatever. It is more of a spiritual work. The treading, for example, is still used today. Like my mom kind of does this, or she used to do it, where she thread something, and she used to just whisper, and I used to wonder what the heck was she doing. Anyway, a lot of people do tread, and they whisper or they sing, and it's a way for them to get in contact with their ancestors or with the traditions. It's not far off. It's not very magical, shall we say. It might be, I don't know. But it is just a way for them to communicate with ancestors. And treading also puts you in a sort of trance. It takes you out from your mind and it puts you into a meditative state. And if you are somehow communicating also with the deaf people, it means you're communicating with the ancestors, or you're communicating with a particular deity that is in the land of Mictlan. And this is probably what this segment means. Now in section C, it's pretty much a continuation of section B, but here we have an introduction of the god in Samna, which we saw on the first page. It could be possible that the god in Samna was a patron god of this particular community. I will remind you that the Dresden Codex was written in the 1200s, early 1200s, and it was very much likely originating in Chichen Itza. Yeah, the one with the crawling serpent. Everybody's been there. And so the god in Samna might have been a patron god for the city of Chichen Itza. Now on section B, we have more litanies. And it says the following. It says, Ishik received the skirt, the coming of the sons of a woman, the sons of man, that is fertility. Now, as to who these sons might be, I don't know. But it could potentially be either real people, or it could be something figurative, like corn or something given to them. Like I said, there's a relationship between the Maya, between people and nature, and so therefore we can immediately assume when they say son, or they say a people, or they are referring to a person, that they're actually referring to a person in the text. They may be referring to something else. It says Camille buttons up her skirt. Now below we see a moon goddess. This is Ishik, holding an item that resembles a speaking glyph. With like a flower coming out of it. And then we have the god of the dead, Kimil, restrained by some type of barrier. Now, if you know your astronomy, the moon is very much related to water. And so it seems that they're definitely making prayers for the coming of water. You have first Chak, which we saw in section B, and now we have in section D that we have the moon goddess. Now Chak is just water, but then the moon goddess, the moon is more about regulating the tides of the waters and the flow of the rivers, or even the tides of the sea. And so therefore these are likely prayers or invocations to the gods, or reminders to make invocations to the gods, or make pleadings or offerings to the gods, to try to bring a good crop. First / burn, probably planted. There's not that much description in this page about that. But then the regulation of the water, regulation of the perpetuity of the royal house, and of course the connection between the royal house and death, or the spirits. And so we get a lot so much from this particular page. Number one, we get the time. We get the fact that they do not measure the 365 cycle like we do. They measure their their almanacs in the 260 days, which they seem to be broken into other segments, which seem to be kind of like biological processes. And so they seem to understand them. And for us, it would also make a lot of sense because the harvest season doesn't really contain 365 days. Well, in maybe some areas of the world it does, but not in like North America. We have cold where sometimes we have to get, our harvest and put it in cans or try to somehow preserve it. The Maya used to build these large subterranean kind of like chambers where they kept their food. And so they were able to maintain it throughout the winter and even during rainy seasons or in just very dry seasons. So it's kind of was kind of like the version of a refrigerator or storage house. And so the 260-day makes a lot of sense because it comes kind of like from summer solstice kind of to the harvest season or the beginning of winter. And so, but it's also has a lot to do with the moon. It has a lot to do with Venus. We're gonna see that in the following pages. And so they saw reality differently than we do. And now we're starting to understand as to how they're writing and how do they relate their mythology and their kind of like poetry. They seem to be speaking in a form of poetry, small, tiny phrases. And so it gives us more insight as to what do they think. And for us to be able to make any sense of it, we have to make elaborations on what is it that they're trying to say based on colloquial and based on like just logic and just scientific facts like, ashes feeding the dirt or the moon controlling the tides of the sea. And for us to be able to understand the environmental structure of the Maya region back then and not today. Anyway, I hope this has been a good episode for you guys. I am really enjoying reading the Dresden Codex and sharing it with you and elaborating on what does it mean. Thank you very much. If you can share, if you can subscribe, if you can like, if you can comment, I will really appreciate it. That will be awesome. I love sharing this work and sharing this culture. Thank you very much and have a great one. Bye-bye.